This audio program by Radio AI is generated using artificial intelligence technologies. The voices you hear in this program are synthetic, and the thoughts they express are shaped through artificial intelligence-driven reasoning and iterative refinement.
Welcome to Radio AI. We're diving deep today into something fascinating. The connection, the evolving connection between our own memory and technology. And the big question we're tackling is, are we sort of outsourcing our minds? And what does that really mean for us?
Yeah, it's a huge question. I mean, humans have always used tools for memory, right? Stone carvings, writing, archives.
Sure, it's not entirely new.
Exactly. But the digital age, it just feels different, faster, more pervasive.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit then. This core pension. Does relying on external memory, like our phones or the cloud, does it free up our brains for, say, deeper thinking, like creativity or judgment?
That's the argument some people make, definitely. Less need for rote recall, maybe more space for synthesis.
But I wonder, could it also maybe make us less critical? If we don't have that knowledge internalized, truly understood, can we properly evaluate information we just look up?
That's the other side of the coin, absolutely. Think about it like this. Imagine two scholars. One has really committed the core ideas of their field to memory. They can spot inconsistencies, flawed arguments almost instantly. It's fluent.
Right, because the knowledge is integrated.
Exactly. Now, the second scholar relies heavily on, let's say, vast digital archives. They can pull up tons of references, way more than the first scholar remembers offhand.
Which sounds powerful.
It is, in terms of scope, but it might take them longer to connect the dots, to see the underlying significance or spot subtle contradictions, because they're constantly retrieving, not necessarily reasoning from a stable internal framework.
So it's a trade-off, speed and fluency versus sheer breadth of access.
Precisely. Neither is inherently better, they just have different strengths and different vulnerabilities too.
That makes sense for an individual, but what about scaling this up? How does this whole memory outsourcing thing affect entire communities?
Yeah, moving beyond the individual, that's where you start seeing these really interesting hybrid practices emerge.
Hybrid practices.
Communities that, they keep passing down key stories and knowledge orally, person to person, like always.
The traditional way.
Right. But also use writing or digital records to codify things.
Yeah.
This mix can make a community's knowledge more resilient, Got backups.
But it must create friction, too.
Oh, for sure. New tensions pop up. What happens when someone's lived memory, what they know happened, conflicts with the official written account?
Ah, okay. Who do you trust?
Exactly. Authority and trust get really tangled up in this. Even if you try to cross-verify yourself, you're navigating between embodied memory and these external records.
So we're not just changing storage, we're changing trust, authority, how knowledge even works in a group. Let's push on this a bit, though. Are external systems always fragile? And is having knowledge in your head always the best for reasoning?
Good questions. It's easy to think of digital stuff as fragile, maybe. But modern systems have incredible redundancy replication. They can be surprisingly robust compared to a single human memory, which is, let's face it, pretty fallible.
True. We forget things, misremember.
But there are trade-offs with external systems, too. Think about fidelity versus scale. You could have a massive digital archive accessible to everyone, but maybe it has to condense complex oral traditions, losing nuance to gain durability.
Or the opposite, a super faithful archive that's small and hard for anyone to actually use.
Exactly, that trade-off. And on your other point, is internal knowledge always key? Well, for some tasks, yes. A mathematician proving a new theorem probably needs that core logic right there, instantly accessible in their mind.
Can't keep Googling every step.
Right. But many fields blend internal and external constantly. Think of a scientist. They have their core principles internalized, but they're always consulting external databases, research papers.
So the line gets blurry.
Very blurry. Between internal thinking and external cognitive tools. And this raises fascinating questions about what some call epistemic responsibility. Meaning, like our duty to know, to check our facts, to be accountable for what we claim, especially when our knowledge is spread out between our brain and our devices. Whose job is it to make sure the information is right?
Which brings us straight back to trust, and maybe bias. If knowledge lives in these systems, how does that shift things?
Well, the way these systems are built, their architecture, can absolutely introduce systemic biases. what gets saved, what gets ignored or left out. That shapes the collective knowledge available.
And we might not even notice it happening.
Often we don't. You get these feedback loops. We rely on dominant systems. They get better funded, more optimized, which reinforces their dominance, maybe amplifying certain viewpoints and silencing others.
Is there pushback against that?
Oh, definitely. People resist. Think about the persistence of oral storytelling or niche communities creating their own archives, focusing on what the mainstream systems neglect. These are ways of challenging those asymmetries.
So it seems the real takeaway isn't about drawing a hard line between mind and machine.
No, not really.
It's more about understanding the terms of this interdependence, right? How our minds and our tech work together.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. Balancing, say, fidelity with scale in our archives, being transparent about the biases baked into systems, and crucially, maintaining redundancy, having knowledge stored in different ways, different places.
So diversifying how we remember, maybe, and building in checks so we don't just blindly trust one system.
That's the core idea. It's about conscious choices.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe something for you, our listeners, to ponder. The real implications here aren't just about the tech itself, but about how deliberately we, as societies, choose to manage this relationship. How attentive are we to that shifting boundary, maybe even dissolving boundary between what our minds hold and what we entrust to our tools? Thank you for joining us on Radio AI for this deep dive. We genuinely value hearing what you think, so please do share your own reflections and thoughts down in the comments. Hope to have you with us again on Radio AI. Until next time.